Hey everyone, today I'm coming to you with a very special Star Wars Black Series video. Today I'm reviewing not one, not two, not even three, but 4 figures, all from the brand new Andor series. Now, the 4 figures that I'm reviewing today are the Cassian Andor from the Aldhani mission, as well as the Imperial Officer from the Dark Times. Those 2 are Walmart exclusives, as well as the Shoretrooper and the Imperial Officer from Ferrix. Now, those 2 are Target exclusives / Toys R Us Canada exclusives. Now, I got these 2 about a month ago, and these 2 just hit. I just got them a few days ago, so I've been meaning to do reviews for these, but I decided because most of these figures are reused, that it would be better to just do them all in one video, and I feel like that gets the point across way better. But I have a lot to say about these figures. They are very cool, and there are a lot of surprises with them that I wasn't expecting. So without further ado, let's get into the review for the store exclusive Star Wars Black Series Andor figures. Now, as always, before I go over the figures, I do quickly want to start off with the boxes here. Now, here we do have 1, 2, 3, and 4 for the Andor Galaxy packaging line. The next 4 are in the plastic-free packaging, being the Andor that we already got with the B2 emo that was released as a convention exclusive. We're getting him released in the main line. We're also getting Luthen, Bix, and Mon Mothma. We also have Vel announced she'll be coming down the line. But I find it very interesting that these 4 were the first 4, not the second 4. I would have thought that those 4 that are coming later this year would have been the first ones. I don't know. That's just me. I find that very interesting. Normally, we don't get store exclusives as the beginning for a brand new Black Series line, but hey, it's still, all things considered, the Black Series line is still very young. I also find it very interesting how they released the figures in 2022, because these were released in 2022 mainly. I am reviewing them in 2023, but they were released in 2022, and what they did is they had the Kenobi series and the Andor series, and they gave 4 store exclusives to each of those, but they didn't give like all 4 Kenobi to Walmart and all 4 Andor to Target and Toys R Us. They gave 2 of each show. We got the one Jack and the Purge Trooper for Walmart, and we got the Tika and the Obi-Wan for Toys R Us, as we got these 2 for Toys R Us and these 2 for Walmart. I just find that very interesting, and I noticed that Black Series is experimenting more with the line, and I very much appreciate it. That being said, these are store exclusives. Now, store exclusives in 2023, are certainly hard to find, but the problem that I have with these is that they are very expensive. I paid they were $44.99. Both of these were $44.99 at Toys R Us Canada, which, whoa, that is insane. I did have a coupon, and I got these 2 during the sale. I didn't get them immediately. I kind of waited out on them, but regardless, still, on paper, $44.99 for 2 figures that are essentially reused, him essentially completely being reused, and him being mostly reused with some new things is kind of crazy. And these 2 aren't really any better. They were a little cheaper. I believe they came out to like $42.99 around there each at Walmart, but still, I find that store exclusives are very expensive, especially because they are reused. But anyway, as far as the box goes, they are in the plastic-free packaging, which is cool. Not plastic-free packaging, the plastic packaging, which is interesting because at least we got some plastic packaging with the Andor line, because the next ones are all in the plastic free. But as you can see, nothing too special here. All 4 of the figures have the exact same bio, which reads, "In an era filled with danger, deception, and intrigue, Cassian Andor embarks on a path that will turn him into the rebel hero who will challenge the evil galactic empire." So all 4 figures have the same exact bio, but as you can see, they all are in a row for the Galaxy packaging, so they all match. I don't really have too much more to show on them. They're kind of, if you've seen one, you've seen them all, but my point is that I love the Galaxy packaging. I absolutely love it. I'm really excited to get the other 4, because I actually did quite enjoy the Andor series, and I'm very impressed at Hasbro's take on the first 4 figures for this line, because Andor is such a vast show that is so different from any other Star Wars project, and they kind of just gave us random things from the show across all episodes. Like, this guy doesn't have a specific name. This guy doesn't have a specific name, but they are specific actors. I mean, that's Andor, and this is a trooper. I find that very interesting that they went and did just some random troopers and officers, because in general, that's usually what Star Wars should be and what Star Wars is. So definitely very impressed at Hasbro's choices for the 4 figures here. I know a lot of people are kind of iffy on these, but personally for me, I think this is very good to get into the line. But other than that, I don't think I have too much more to say about the boxes. So let's get on to the figures, and let's do them in order. So let's start off with the Cassian Andor Aldhani mission, which is my favorite, spoiler alert, but let's get into him first. Now, the first figure we have here is the Cassian Andor from the Aldhani mission. Those episodes were some of the best Star Wars content I think I've ever seen. So I was actually very, very excited to get this figure. I find the design of it so unique for a Star Wars trooper slash officer. It's kind of a hybrid between them because, yes, he does have the armor and he has essentially the same thing as the Mud Troopers slash the Morak disguises for Din Djarin and Migs Mayfield, but he has an officer cap, and he's kind of carrying himself like an officer, which is very, very interesting. Now, my one main gripe with this figure is that he is not included with this gun. This gun, if you didn't know, this is included with the Death Troopers. It might be included with other figures, but majority of the time it is included with the Death Trooper. Now, in Andor, he did wield this gun, or I guess his whole squadron, they were in the same costumes. They did wield these guns, so it would have been really, really cool to have this. Granted, these were probably designed based off concept art, and they didn't know that these were going to be in it, but still, if you have this, it adds a lot to the actual Andor figure. As you can see, let's just put this on. You'll see what I mean. Just work with me here. Boom, 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 and boom. That, to me, looks so absolutely amazing and adds so much to this figure. But that being said, even without it, I absolutely love this figure. This is a design in which, you know, on paper, it should be very simple, but I have found that I have not been able to put this figure down. Now, one of the reasons for that, I think, to me, I do appreciate some good action figure legs, and Black Series does definitely have a lot of those these days. These are brand new legs that I can recall, at least, and I think I'm correct on that, but always correct me if I'm wrong. Now, these are pinless. Well, not pinless, but they're newer designs from about 2019, late 2019 going into 2020. They got rid of the double pinned joints, and they kind of just went with single joints on most of their new modern figures. Now, these legs, like I mentioned numerous times, are brand new, and something about them, they just are very smooth. They move very well. There's boot rotation. We'll get into that in the articulation, of course, but these definitely add a lot to this figure, especially because me buying a store exclusive Black Series figure, I've been around the block a few times. I was expecting complete utter reuse with maybe a new head or maybe a new gun or something, but these legs being brand new adds a lot to this figure. Now, the rest of the figure, as you can see, let me grab him. I believe it is all the same. Well, from the torso up, it is the same. The belt going down actually is new as well. Now, you do have the holster, which is for the same gun that this guy was included with, being Migs Mayfield. You can see under there, I don't have the Mando yet, but still, that is cool. I didn't actually think of that this was also new. So there is a decent amount of new with this. You get that all the way down is brand new, as well as the head. So this is probably the figure in the wave of 4, I guess. Well, let's call it a wave that has the most new parts, which definitely is always a bonus. But other than that, I don't think there's too much more really to go over. Actually, yes, there is. I just want to focus on how amazing this Diego Luna head is. This is absolutely amazing to me. As you can see, that is spot on. That, I don't think that's just me. I showed this to my friend and someone else, and they absolutely agreed with me. As you can see, let's grab the other Andor figure, the more common one that'll be more readily available later this year. This is cool. I like this figure a lot, maybe a little bit more in the grand scheme of things. I love the design of this, but I always found that likeness wasn't entirely spot on. And when you look at these two, they look similar, but this just looks so much more like him. Now, that might be because he doesn't have this massive beard. This is more like his Rogue One appearance, which we are more used to for sure. But I don't know. That's just something that I thought I would mention. This is just an absolutely amazing head sculpt. Now, I'm sure some of you are wondering, can you take the cap off? But you can't, and I wouldn't recommend it because he's just going to have a very odd looking head shape, and we don't want that on our Black Series shelves. But other than that, I love the paint on this. I just love the design overall. This is something so different and unique for Star Wars, and it just feels very adult, which I guess that is kind of what Andor was. It was a very, very adult Star Wars show, which is something that I think, you know, whether we agree or not, is something that is needed because Star Wars has a lot of adult fans, and I definitely appreciate them trying new things out. But other than that, I think this is all I have to say for this figure. So let's quickly get onto his articulation, and then let's get on to the Imperial Officer. Now, the articulation on this Aldhani mission Andor, or Aldhani Andor, I kind of like that. That should just be his whole name, not Cassian Andor, Aldhani Andor. The articulation, anyway, is very, very good. The head goes up that much, down, side, full 360. It's pretty good. I mean, I said the articulation is great, but it's, you know, kind of just par for the course, but the arms go out this much, down, full 360. This is the Han Solo Mud Trooper body mold, which came out in 2018 going into 2019, I believe. So they didn't use butterfly joints that commonly at that time, so this doesn't have butterfly joints, but still you do get a good enough range of movement. The elbows go in that much, a little more than 90. There is rotation there as well. Now the hands do have different articulation. This one goes up and down and full 360 and very, very stiff and kind of doesn't really move that much, but that is on a horizontal hinge, and this one is on a vertical hinge, so he can hold his gun and shoot it like he does, and he shoots a lot in the show. Ab crunch goes down that much, which isn't that great. Back, that is very good. You see a lot of the belly, which, you know, you don't actually see when you go like this, so I do appreciate that they do have a sculpt there nonetheless. Back that much, side, full 360. Now the legs, which I love the legs on this, as you guys know, go out this much. Back, splits, upper thigh cut, single jointed knee that also rotates, boot rotation, which is kind of uncommon these days, and the ankles go up, down, and ankle rocker pivot. So overall, pretty good articulation on this Andor figure, and overall, definitely, in my opinion, my favorite of the 4 figures. Now, the next figure we have here is the Imperial Officer Dark Times. The other Imperial Officer is Ferrix, and I just find it interesting that you have, like, Aldhani mission, Ferrix, like, things that actually usually make sense, and this guy's just Dark Times. And yes, certainly that makes sense. They use the same thing with the Kenobi series Darth Vader, but I just find it interesting that they categorize a figure by putting it in the Dark Times, which we all know what the Dark Times are. But anyway, this figure is very, very unique and different for the Black Series line. The new parts here are the head sculpt. The whole head sculpt is brand new, as well as this cape portion, as well as, I believe, the torso. I could be wrong on that. I'm looking at this and it might be from Galen Erso, but I don't think it is. Now, one thing that I assume most of you are wondering, can you take this cape or whatever it's called off? You cannot, because if you can kind of see, it is glued to the back. You can't really see, but it is glued to the back. Just take my word for it, which is a little bit of a gripe. It would have been cool to have this figure without it, but I really do like this. It is so different. It makes this Imperial Officer just look so much more menacing. Now, certainly, this does make this figure a traffic cone, as most capes as this usually do, but you can do some things with it. Now, obviously, be careful with your figures, but I find that if you kind of bend it up, you kind of fold it like this, it doesn't damage it at all, makes it look like he's in the wind, and you can get some really cool poses of him just walking or shooting his gun or something. I like that feature that you can, not that it's a feature that they probably promote, but to me at least, this really, really makes this figure just feel so much more dynamic and just alive as a figure. There's so much more you can do with it when you can move this up. I don't know if that's just me. Let me know what you think of the figure being able to do that, but if you don't want that, you can just put it back down. Now, he does have the 4 blue dots on his torso, or on the cape part of the torso. I don't exactly know what those mean, but it's probably just because he's an officer. If he doesn't have the red, I assume he's not the big deal or the big man, and this guy isn't. He's kind of just a normal mustache looking Imperial Officer. This is an actor that was in Star Wars Andor, and probably didn't expect that he would be getting an action figure, because this is kind of just like a trooper figure. This isn't like a Imperial Officer from Empire Strikes Back, like a named one, like a, why can't I think of any right now? Piet or something like them. All those different officers had names. This guy, at least right now in the first season, doesn't have a name, so I find it very interesting that they decided to go with it, and honestly, I'm not opposed to that. Same thing with the Andor Aldhani mission figure. You can't take the cap off, but that face sculpt I find very, very interesting. The eyes are very much wide open. The photoreal doesn't seem as, like, in your face, and what I mean by that is that it's like super shiny. Definitely does have a little bit of a shine here, certainly on the mustache and definitely by the eyes, but it just looks really, really good to me, and I think they are slowly, year after year, getting better with their ability to use the face scanning technology, which is definitely a bonus, because I think something crucial with these figures that do have a actor's likeness is the likeness, because if you get that wrong, then the rest of the figure will definitely have a hard time making up for. But other than that, you can see that he does have a decent amount of reuse, being the arms, the legs. Those are the same as most of the Imperial officers, as you can see, the same as Krennic here, but there is enough new here to warrant it being a good figure to purchase. And the other thing, though, is he doesn't have have a holster. I assume that's accurate, but it's always nice to have a holster for a gun, especially an officer, because this guy is not going to be doing most of the shooting. He'll have his stormtroopers doing it for him or whatnot. But other than that, I don't have too much more to say about this figure. Definitely a very, very unique Star Wars Black Series figure. Just overall, I don't think you can not deny that. And it's unique and it's cool. Like, look at this. This is very menacing, and this could be his own Imperial Officer character. You can make your own story up about who he is. I just find this very interesting, as I do for most of these figures. But other than that, let's quickly get into his articulation, and then let's get on to the Shoretrooper. That is the name, right? Shoretrooper. I always think it's a Scarab Trooper, but the Shoretrooper. Now, the articulation on this Imperial Officer is obviously hindered because of this big old traffic cone of a cape or whatever it's supposed to be, poncho. I have no idea. I'm not that smart when it comes to clothing items, and especially clothing items that are fictional and in Star Wars. Honestly, those are the clothing items I care about most than the actual ones in real life, but still, I don't exactly know what this is called. I think it's just a cape. I'm just going to call it a cape. But anyway, the head articulation is kind of just expected. The head goes up this much, down, a decent amount of tilt, actually a lot of tilt there, full 360. Now, obviously the arms would go out a lot more if this wasn't here, but as it stands, they can go out that much. Kind of move them forward a bit. You get the point. They're very hindered, but you still get a little bit of range there that makes it movable, which is always special and kind of needed with a action figure, because that's kind of the whole purpose. But anyway, the elbows go in a little less than 90, which isn't that great, but still good enough. You do have a little bit of rotation. Now, this hand is on a horizontal hinge and full 360, as well as this one. I thought this would have been on a trigger hand, or a vertical hinge, but it is not. Both are on horizontal hinges. Ab crunch. What do we have here for ab crunch? Not that good going forward. And not that good going back. It kind of, you can put it out that much, you see a little bit of a cut, but it kind of just goes back, which, whatever. This guy, to be fair, let's be honest, he's going to be standing there and looking badass. He's not going to be doing kung fu kicks and all this stuff. He's just going to be standing there looking menacing and looking like a very intimidating Imperial officer. And by that standard, he's doing very, very well. But legs kick forward that much. They do kick forward back. Now, if you do lift this thing up, as I did, which, you know, do at your own risk, but the legs can kick forward that much more or back, which is definitely better than what it is when the cape is down. Splits, upper thigh cut, double jointed, pinned knees, which I always found went in too little. They could have gone in a little bit more, but still, that's a little more than 90. And then they go in, and then the ankles, very stiff. Be careful. Always be careful with your figures. That's my one recommendation as a action figure or anything reviewer. Just be careful with your stuff. Ankles go up that much, down, and ankle rocker pivot. I say be careful as I probably ripped this thing on camera, which I didn't rip it. It's completely fine. And I actually really like that this can do what it does, like what I showed, because if I'm being entirely honest, I like this figure, but when I pulled it out, I was kind of like, okay, what do I do with this? It's just a traffic cone. You stand him there and he looks awesome, which, you know, you do that with a lot of figures, but especially him because of that cape. It hinders a lot. But overall, I do really think that you should try out that thing that I did. Just be careful, obviously, but it's definitely something that adds a lot to this figure. But regardless, that's all I have to say about this figure, which was definitely a lot. But let's get on to the Shoretrooper. And the next figure we have here is the Shoretrooper. Now, the first two I showed were, of course, Walmart exclusives, and these next two are Toys R Us Canada / Target exclusives. But this one, of all four, probably does have the most reuse. As you can see, he does have a new gun. This is the archived Shoretrooper from 2021, I believe. I really do like this new gun. I find it interesting. That is like a pistol, but it isn't. It's the size of a pistol, kind of, but you can also grip it like a normal blaster rifle that a Shoretrooper would have, like this one. So that's definitely interesting, and the color is nonetheless. Now, this is the Shoretrooper, if you don't remember, from Andor that arrested Cassian while he was running on the beach, and he got caught for something he didn't do, and then he went to jail, and you know how that goes. But anyway, you do have this little pouch here, or this holster, which is definitely interesting. Not something that you would think would work perfectly as a holster, but if you get it right, and that definitely does take some effort. It probably isn't going to go on camera. I'm trying to give this thing praises, and of course it doesn't work properly, but okay, there. So I got the peg in. That, to me, looks very, very good and just looks very secure, which is something that is definitely important when you have a holster, and it isn't too tight that it wrecks it or makes it look bad by any means, but that definitely is cool. And as you can see, I'm trying to just see. So this actually is a new piece, but it isn't, or it doesn't make the belt, the rest of the belt like this one has new. It's just an overlay. As you can see, they just glued it in from the top, or whatever they did. They put it from the top going down, so it is just a add-on to an existing piece, but the rest of the Shoretrooper is identical as I can tell. I believe so. I always could be wrong, but yes, I think it is exactly the same. But the main difference here is certainly the color of brown that they are using here, but the white on the shoulder pauldrons is definitely more prevalent than it is on this one and other Shoretrooper designs, because I know there are a decent amount of other designs. This is the first time we are seeing this design of a Shoretrooper in Star Wars. I remember in, I think it was 2021 around March, when the set photos for Andor leaked, and it was of this and just Cassian. That was the scene when he was getting arrested, and I was like, that's an interesting design for a Shoretrooper. And then they showed it, or it got leaked rather, and I was like, that's an interesting choice, but honestly, I am happy to have it nonetheless. The paintwork on this is absolutely phenomenal because it is a reuse, or a complete reuse, essentially. They got to make up for things in other ways. Now, they definitely did make up for it with the paint. However, I don't know. What do you think? I find that the paint detailing on this archive one is way better. This, on the back, it just looks very, very smooth. They could have done a little bit more detail there. Like, look at this guy. He has a whole bunch. He has the black. I don't know if this guy's supposed to have that, but I imagine he probably is. I feel like they kind of cheaped out here on the paint, which, you know, of course they should cheap out on a figure that's like $10 more expensive than a retail figure. But other than that, I kind of don't really have too much more to talk about this figure. What you see is what you get. If you like the Shoretrooper design for a Black Series figure, if you have it and you like it, or even if you don't and you like what it looks like, it is a very, very good figure. However, if you just want a Shoretrooper, I'd get the archive one. This one is just definitely overpriced and is a little more unique in the style. And this one kind of just goes more with Star Wars in general. You can use this with Mandalorian, you can use this with Rogue One, and other stuff I imagine in the future. But this, at least of right now, is very much a Andor design. And as I can see, the paint going down there, right there, is off. So if I'm being honest, of the four, this is probably my least favorite. But still, that doesn't mean it's a bad figure. It's just definitely overpriced, as all of these are. But other than that, I don't have too much more to say, so let's quickly get into the Shoretrooper's articulation. Now, the articulation on the Shoretrooper is expected if you have a Shoretrooper already, but regardless, the head goes up that much, down that much. There is a little bit of tilt, which decent amount, very, very good. Full 360, arms go out that much, down, full 360, the elbows go in kind of exactly 90, then you do have rotation. This hand is on a horizontal hinge, therefore up, down, full 360, and this one is on a vertical hinge. There, ooh, that is, that looks painful. The hand is on a vertical hinge, so it goes down that much, and up, and full 360, so that is good. Ab crunch goes down a decent amount. I always found that the ab crunch on the Shoretroopers is very, very good. Back, side, side, ooh, that scares me. That really scares me. Full 360. That is tight. I wouldn't recommend that, but you can definitely do it. And then the legs kick forward that much. And back, honestly, this thing you would think would get in the way, but it really doesn't. I guess when you want to do splits, it does. But when and how often do you really want to have a Shoretrooper in the splits is my question. He does have upper thigh cut, double jointed knees. Oh, I'm so scared. I'm really scared, guys. I shouldn't be scared reviewing action figures, but here we are, and I am. Goes in that much, and then the ankles go up that much, down, and ankle rocker pivot. This is just an interesting pose to have him, and he looks like he's on a Star Wars train or something. He's just holding on to a rail. But anyway, that's all I have to say about this figure. Pretty cool, but could have been better and could have been a lot cheaper, as all of these figures could be. But let's get on to the last figure, being the Imperial Officer, Ferrix. Now, lastly of the four, here I have the Ferrix Imperial Officer. I find it very interesting that there are two Imperial Officers in this wave. I'm going to call it a wave, even though it kind of isn't. But they're only differentiated by one being from Ferrix and one being from Dark Times. I still find that it's called Dark Times very baffling. But still, this was the first one I got of the four, and I absolutely love this design. It's so realistic for a Star Wars trooper. Normally they have a helmet. This guy definitely has a helmet, but you can see his chin. You can see most of his face. It just looks like a real life soldier in a lot of ways. To me, we all know what Imperial officers, and most of them are based off of, or they're based off of, let's just say, real-life monsters. And this, to me, looks like it could be that, which is kind of scary, but I don't know if that's just me. It gives off that vibe, and especially with the all-black. Now, regardless, this is a lot of reuse. The two Toys R Us / Target exclusives I find interesting because those two have the most reuse and the Walmart ones have the most new. They didn't like do one and one, but they did both and both, which that's how Hasbro works. And honestly, I still give them money, so I'm not going to complain. He has a standard kind of Stormtrooper Imperial blaster, so nothing too special there. But what I really do like about this figure, and I didn't know that it could do this when I saw it leaked / revealed, because these were mainly leaked. That's how most of us got the news of these coming out. You can take not only these goggles off, or I doubt they're called goggles, glasses, whatever they're called, but you can also take this helmet off to get the actual trooper, actor, whoever this guy is, just without the helmet, which is very interesting to me. I wish they would have done that with the caps or the hats on the Andor and the other Imperial officer from this line, but because this one can do it, I just find that that adds so much more to this character. Now, there is a problem that comes up with this and the Imperial officer. These are on paper meant to be army builders, but you can't really army build them unless you have custom heads. You could definitely remove this head as you could remove this. You can't take the cap off. It's easier with this one because you can take the helmet on and put it back on. But I just find it interesting that it is based off of just a specific individual. It's not a helmeted trooper in which you could buy multiple of. Certainly you can. You just have to do a lot of customizing. That's a good thing and a bad thing for this figure because it adds something very unique to the Black Series line, but you're not going to have people likely going out and buying 4, 5, 6 of these because it is specifically one character. Now, like I've mentioned numerous times, you can customize that, but just as a product individually, I definitely find that interesting. Now, that head sculpt, that is a very, very cool head sculpt. This looks very familiar to me. I feel like you could use this if you did want to do a custom as like a older, later seasoned Ezra Bridger. I feel like you could maybe use it, do a little bit of customizing. It just gives off that vibe. I don't like the neck there. It looks like he has like he got shot in the neck, but it's just the plastic skew, you know, Black Series. They're not the greatest quality sometimes. You do have 2 holes there on the back, which are the exact same as on the Aldhani Andor. Those were on the Han Solo Mud Trooper, and they haven't changed that since. But other than that, you can put the helmet back on, just like so, with the thing on his chin. Now, these, I do want to kind of go over here. You can kind of have them above the helmet so you can see the eyes, but you can also kind of shift them down so you can have them over the eyes. Now, that definitely maybe could stretch them, but in the grand scheme of things, I think that just looks very badass. And now, when you have it like that, I know I just went on this whole spiel of you not being able to army build it, but this kind of just looks like a trooper at this time when you have that much down, because I know most troopers have helmets. You can't see any of the face, and it gets to a point here where you see very, very little of the face for sure, but that might just be me. But other than that, very, very, very cool figure. Definitely one of my favorites of the 4, and definitely one of the more unique Black Series figures in the line overall, which has been around for, what, like 10 years now? I think it's the 10th anniversary. So this is definitely a interesting figure, as all of these are. But other than that, I don't have too much more to say on this. So let's get on to the articulation. Now, the articulation on this Ferrix Imperial Officer is kind of expected, but I'm still going to go over it, even though the torso articulation is exactly the same as the Aldhani Mission Andor, because it is using the exact same parts, but still, the head goes up that much, down, side, side, full 360, so pretty good movement there. Overall, arms go out this much, no butterfly joint. Like I said, it is the same as the Andor that I just showed in the same exact video. Shocker. The elbows go in 90, do have rotation, and then horizontal hinge as I showed with the Andor figure, and vertical hinge on this side. Ab crunch goes down that much. Back, same amount as the Andor, so still very cool to have that ability to see that much of the figure that is covered when it's down. I just find that that little extra detail does add a slight bit more to this figure. That is definitely a bonus. The legs kick forward that much. Back, splits, upper thigh cut, double jointed, pinned knees, pinned ankles go up this much. Now, I find that this figure, especially, well, all figures on this body have very fragile ankles. Not that any have broke. I just find that it's definitely possible, but they go up. down, and ankle rocker pivot. So overall, pretty good articulation. This is bothering me because I know that the upcoming Din Djarin Morak disguise is on the same body, of course, but on the box, he has pinless. Love you, Hasbro. But other than that, let's get on to some comparisons and then my final thoughts. Now, first for comparisons, here we have all 4 figures that are reviewed in this video next to each other. I thought I'd do this because normally I just review figures individually, but they all look very, very good next to each other, and it kind of just shows the variety going on here, which I very much enjoy. Next up, here we have the Shoretrooper from the Archive line. Next up, here we have the Migs Mayfeld in his Morak disguise, which I'm showing because he reuses a lot of parts from this Andor, as well as this Imperial Officer from Ferrix. Next up, here we have the 4 figures next to the Andor that was released with B2 Emo that will be released later this year in the main line that will go next to these, as well as the Rogue One Cassian Andor, which as you can see, the skin color difference is kind of just crazy, but this still is a very good figure nonetheless. I have the 4 next to a standard modern Imperial Stormtrooper from the Black Series, as well as a Phase 2 Purge Trooper that was kind of released alongside these. I love this figure so much. I want to get more of them, and I will, but you know, patience is key, guys. I also gave the weapon that I was talking about that comes with the Death Trooper to the Aldhani Mission Andor. Here we have the Dark Times Darth Vader from the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, as well as the K2SO figure next to the 4 Andor figures. I find that Imperial Officers in black are some of my favorites because they go very, very well with the main man himself. And lastly, for comparisons, here we have our 4 Andor figures next to the Grand Inquisitor, as well as the 5th brother from the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. I find it interesting that Andor and Kenobi released in the same year, and both of them essentially take place at the exact same time. That's kind of why Darth Vader has Dark Times next to him, as well as this Imperial Officer. But these two, I love these figures so much. Some of the best of 2022 for sure, but they go very, very well next to especially these two. Now, as far as my final thoughts go on these 4 store-exclusive Andor figures, I think all things considered, these are good figures. They aren't anything spectacular or amazing, but they get their job done as retail exclusives. Certainly, they are expensive, but I find that these figures add a layer of depth to the line, but also your display as well as mine. I'm personally very excited to see what these are going to look like on my shelf, but for my ranking on these 4, I'm going to give first place to Andor, second place to the Ferrix Trooper, third place to the, not Ferrix Trooper, well, Imperial Officer Ferrix, and then third place I'm going to give to the Dark Times Imperial Officer, and fourth place to the Shoretrooper. But at the price point that these figures are at, I really don't think I can recommend these. If you can get a discount of sorts, then go for it, but $45 around that price point for each of these is kind of just insane. They should be a lot cheaper than that. But as always, let me know what you think of these figures in the comments below. As a ranking or a rating for all 4, I'm going to give all 4 a 8 out of 10. I'll give it a 7.8 out of 10 for all 4. All of them together. Like, if we were to put these all into one figure and give that a rating, that's my rating. I'm going to give it a 7.8. But as always, let me know what you think of these figures in the comments below. I really, especially with these, want to know what you guys think. And until my next video, thank you so much for watching this video. This was a very, very fun video to make. And until then, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. I have been Jagger Collector, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye, guys.